My name is Cyrus, and this is Unlearning Our Way Back to Health. There are two kinds of intelligence. I adore that poem by Rumi and his eloquent description. The first intelligence acquired through formal education, involving the memorization and regurgitation of facts and knowledge. While this intelligence can lead to worldly success, it is limited in its scope and depth. In contrast, the second type of intelligence is an innate, fluid force that originates from within. I remember the first time I cut open a human body. Here it is. The invitation to deepen in presence. This spiraling organ of perception. This heart. A wave surged throughout my entire body, whispering, "This is what it would look like. This is what it would feel like if there was no alteration in the frequency of truth." I heard this the other day. Intelligence in Italian is pronounced intelligenza, which means to read between the lines. At a young age, my grandfather told me I had the secret language of surgery. I didn't even know there was a language of surgery. Years later, as an emergency surgeon, I recognized it was indeed my first language. There are many voices in the operating theater, and sometimes the most important are those that don't use words at all. What happens to the patient's voice during an operation? At first glance, it seems to have disappeared altogether under general anesthesia. Their body gradually relinquishes autonomy, leaving behind their personhood and their power to speak for themselves. But that is vaguely true. Throughout operation, the surgical team monitors this wordless commentary, this constant unconscious broadcast of the body. Any variation, a change in rhythm, a subtle inflection of pitch, will alert us as to where to attune next. You must become fluent in the language of the unconscious to perform in any excellence. An addiction is anything we do to avoid hearing these messages that the body and soul are trying to send us. I watched as this wound of humanity, academia, and the narrow scope of conventional medicine tried to veer me away from this speaking and this hearing. But I went into studying medicine and science as someone would study sacred text. Somewhere in me, I knew that I would always be approaching the body in this way. The filter I was perceiving through would always be searching for God and sacred in any context. The incredible, intricate complexity of our cellular biology, I was so fascinated by the quantum structures, by the language of nature and mathematics, and how complex they were, yet exquisitely harmonious. Nothing would take this awe away from me. Years into emergency medicine, I forgot what was important with what was urgent. Your urgency became my emergency. This would continue to grow a barrier. The burden of carrying a fragmented self became increasingly weighty. I couldn't fully comprehend the gravity of the situation I was in and the unpredictable residue that would be left upon my body and psyche. Because of this premature maturation in my adolescence, I began to develop deep consequences of instability in physical, mental, and emotional regulation. What? Who? Me? All of my academic studies landed inside of the firm understanding that stress-induced illness and disease were universally regarded as a nuance at best, and at worst a grave embarrassment and misfortune which must be fiercely combated in private shame. I devoted a considerable time to concealing the gradual decline of my health. What began as an attempt to camouflage it with a single stimulant eventually morphed into a complex concoction of pharmaceuticals, alcohol, and nicotine dependence. I found myself on the brink of despair. The shame of my struggles, the lack of alternative medicines, the disempowerment inside of the victim triangle all led me to consider suicide. 6 years went by, and there she is again. I've seen this face before in the mirror. Pale, eyes sunken in, concealing the relentless grip of chronic fatigue, gut dysbiosis, another chronic mystery illness, curled up in fetal position, drenched in sweat from enduring excruciating pain, and grappling with bleeding from my colon. Who have I become? Heart monitors going off to alert staff, pulse dropping below 25 beats per minute, 97 pounds. My own physical illness was an entry point into deeper issues not being discussed, both personally and collectively. In the midst of my physical rejection, I could no longer ignore the emotional turmoil. When I stepped into the secrecy of this career, I may have assisted in healing others, but I gave away my own power of health. Our human society is based on a nervous system response and our grasp for another to have our solution. Mommy medicine, daddy government. I began to seek fulfillment in searching for the answers outside of me. But when I became ill, my path was forced to dissolve into love itself. I became intimate with generating my own remembrance, and through this, I began to unlearn my way back to health. We are the darkest thing on the planet, and yet we hold the whole cosmos. The whole cosmos knows we have the most extraordinary healing technology within us, which is the capacity to vibrate in this frequency that we call love. And for that, we ask the baited question, will this species leave behind the past of the darkness that we are capable of to do what we are here to truly do? I stand here not just as a speaker, but as a recovered surgeon, someone who has traversed the intricate pathways of conventional medicine and emerged on the other side with a profound understanding of alternative healing. The suppressed voices of professionals seeking to share truth are uniting to pave the way for a new era in healthcare and planetary well-being. We are them. I can no longer think of human health without thinking about planetary health, because I now know the two are intrinsically linked and cannot be split. Real change happens from within this truth. As I share my story, I invite you to join me on this journey of unlearning our way back to health. We must remind each other that we are bigger than we are being told, that we are more powerful than the world wants us to know, that we have an original design of health that is so perfect and so pristine that no other human or system can change that. It is time to approach this as a real scientist, because a real scientist doesn't go in with an agenda. A real scientist goes in with pure curiosity.